This is the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. It's Tuesday, January 9th, 2024 at 5 p.m. And our first agenda item is a call to order by roll call. So Linda Escobedo.
Present.
Mike Lawson.
Present.
Rich Feely.
Present.
Harry LaFleur will not be with us tonight, and Keith Bergman present. So we have 4 members. And we also have Liz Russ from the Regional Housing Services Office and Kathy Cuocolo from FinCom and Ray Andrews from the CHDC. So welcome all. Next item is approval of minutes, and there are 3 sets to approve. And I had distributed them sometime in the last few weeks, and I sent out a new set last week. Let's start with the meeting minutes from our regular meeting on December 5th. 2023. All of us were present, so anyone can make a motion to approve.
So move.
Motion by Linda to approve, second by Rich. Is there discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call on approval of those minutes. Linda?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Keith, aye. Thanks very much. Next, we go way back to August 16th, 2023, the Concord Housing Roundtable, where we had a quorum, and the present for that meeting were Linda, Mike, Carrie, and Keith. So I'd invite a motion to approve by Linda.
So move, yeah.
Second by Mike.
Second.
And let's do a roll call vote on those minutes approval. Linda?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I'm going to put Rich down as an abstention.
Correct.
And Keith, aye. So that's 3 in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstention. Rich. Lastly, we have the trusts. We have the December 11th, 2023 Concord Housing Roundtable minutes. And by the way, thanks to Liz Russ for both sets of minutes for us to be able to approve. And present there were Linda, Mike, and Keith. So let's do we'll do why don't we do Linda motion and Mike second on approval? Is that okay, Linda?
Sure.
And Mike?
Certainly.
All right. So on that motion to approve, we'll do a roll call. Linda?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Keith, aye. So that's also 3 in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstention. All right. Very good. Thanks so much. Next item to get us started, I wanted to, it's listed as Chapter 40B updates, looking at current and projected subsidized housing inventory, and also checking in on what are now 2 active 40Bs. So I'm just going to, for starters, share my screen. And I thought it was, let's see, all right. So I thought it was worthwhile that at the Housing Roundtable, we stood at 9.97%. And as of today, we are, or as of December 13th, a couple of days afterwards, we rose to 9.98% towards our 10% goal. And that was due to the addition on the subsidized housing inventory of 16 Mill Run. And I thought it would, since the question comes up a lot, and we're working on a lot of projects, that it would be worth stating that we've got a plan for getting 5 more units online sometime this calendar year. Some of them may be very soon, and others might take a little longer, but I think it's worth noting that we're seeing ourselves coming above 10% in the coming months. One is at the Giroux property, 365 Com Ave. In fact, the select board voted last night, I think, on a regulatory, took some regulatory action that will get that moving along. The Housing Authority, CHA Local Properties LLC, their development arm, is going to be closing on January 31st on their acquisition of a unit at 78 Forest Ridge Road. And they are using the $400,000 that the trust granted just a month ago towards that purchase. So our money is being put to work rather quickly, and that's great to see. Meanwhile, at Assabet River Bluff, there are 2 units in the existing 2-family structure, which are expected to come online in the coming months. And that's exciting. It's a very I know that we'll hear some more updates tonight, but there's many steps in that process, and those steps are being taken, and that's great. And then the fourth or the fifth unit that I would go out on a limb and project, is that now that we've also approved grant funding for the CHDC's buy down program, they have funds in place which hopefully will allow them to act, if not as quickly as the Housing Authority did, to act on short order to buy down an existing unit that is not counted on the SHI and make it affordable so it can be. So those are the things that are coming up, and that's important. But because we were below 10%, though, because we fell below, we're open to 40B developments. And now, since the last time we met, there are officially 2 projects that are before the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Nova Riverside Commons on Baker Ave has been there for some months. That hearing opened in September, and it will close by April. It must close by April. I'm sorry, the hearing must close by March 10th, and they must issue their decision by April 19th. And if that project for 201 rental units with 51 affordable, if it's approved, it'll increase our subsidized housing inventory to 12.86%. And lastly, there was on December 20th, after our housing roundtable, Mass Housing issued a letter of determination of project eligibility for the residences at Thorough at 275 Forest Ridge Road. And one day later, December 21st, the developer filed a comprehensive permit application with the Zoning Board of Appeals. So that hearing will now open on January 18th. And I believe the intent is to table it, to table a presentation on it for a future meeting. And if both of these 40Bs are approved, then at that point, our subsidized housing inventory would be increased to 15.87%. And in the meantime, we're working on other things that which we're all aware of. We're certainly looking at some point in the future, in the next year or two, maybe, to be able to add 3 new units at the Assabet River Homes at project, which is currently before the ZBA. I heard yesterday from Public Works Director Alan Cathcart that I asked him if he thought that Novo Riverside Commons would be able to get a sewer permit, and his answer was, the way it looks right now, yes. And I said, well, that's good. The reason we're asking is that the trust is looking to set aside funds for towards the sewer improvement fee for the 51 affordable units. So we can certainly keep that on our list. We're also exploring with the town the acquisition of surplus state property at 91B Main Street, where at a minimum we think there could be 4 units developed and maybe more. And of course, the biggest project that we'll likely undertake at Junction Village with the reboot of that 12-acre property that will add significant amounts. So we're busy, and a lot's happening, and I thought it was worthwhile to just put the information out there in summary form. And I want to add one other layer of information, which thanks to Liz Rust, you can take a look at. This is our current subsidized housing inventory, where we stand at 9.98%. And that divides up to between 359 restricted units that are restricted at up to 80% of area mean income. And the rest are unrestricted, 357. But if you do a deeper dive into restricted units that we have in Concord, there are actually 42 other units, and Liz has sent us the list, that are restricted but not countable on the subsidized housing inventory. And they fall into 2 categories. I went through the spreadsheet that Liz sent, and there 35 of the units are affordable. I'm just saying in general, up to 150% of AMI, that they're considered a moderate income. And a unit would have to be 80% to count in and of itself on the subsidized housing inventory. The other is a category of low-income, non-SHI eligible units, which account for 7. So I think it's important to be adding this layer of information for us and for our housing partners, because I know that in projects like the Junction Village, and maybe other projects as well, we'll be seeing moderate income units being created and trust funds being requested for that. And
Keith,
so
could I
think
ask a question about the
yeah, sure.
7 units low income that you mentioned? Could I have more of a definition of that group?
Sure. I'm going to stop the screen and invite Liz to reply. Thanks so much.
Sure. Those are the Housing Authority local units that never made it onto the SHI, like the one on Commonwealth Avenue next to Giroux that's being added now. There are 6 other ones as well.
Any general reason why they didn't get added initially?
Usually it's a matter of marketing and perhaps a local preference that was not to the standards that are required to get on the SHI.
Oh, okay, understood. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Liz.
Not a problem.
Thanks so much, Liz. And I hope I characterized the information that you sent correctly.
Yeah, I might offer that your slide prior, those 5 units maybe you had there, or 6, whatever it is. The timing might be different. I believe that Novo will probably come online before all of those come online. So the progression of the SHI will be a little bit different as you've outlined it, but whatever, doesn't, close enough.
All right. Yeah, thanks. I thought about how to show that in a single graphic and decided it was
Yeah.
more than I could
I'm
do,
sure
but
that the
you're right.
CHGC, the CHGC buy down will not be calendar year 2024, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I think the second unit at Old Marlborough Road probably will not be. We'll have to see about that.
Yeah.
There's some questions there. And Novo, as soon as that permit is issued, that'll come right on the SHI. And not
Right.
only will it come on the SHI, it will, not that it really is that important, but it will certify the housing production plan. Not really needed, but
Yeah,
it's
that's great. Yeah, well, we will achieve safe harbor 2 ways.
2 ways, exactly.
Right, and also qualify, to my understanding, that we'd qualify for the housing choice designation because it will constitute overall constitute a 3% increase.
No,
over
that's
the last
building permits.
few-
You have to get those building
Oh,
permits.
is it a building permit? Okay, so that'll be a while then.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
thanks so
exactly.
much. Thanks so much. Rich, question?
Yeah, a question on Thorough. Obviously, there's this discussion around we're the only fossil fuel-free pilot program that had an exemption for affordable housing. Suppose we say, oh, yes, you're right, we'll go with that too. My recollection is that Thorough, unlike Novo, is not fossil fuel free. So are they able to go all the way through without having revised the plan to become fossil fuel free? Do we have to consider them if they won't? I'm curious.
Yeah, those are.
Thing
Yeah,
I'll
those are
comment
great
on, Keith, before you jump in, if you don't mind,
Sure.
is that the select board did vote on Monday night to require, as part, so that we are eligible for the state pilot program that we're now part of, the fossil-free building pilot program. We're one of 9 communities that are included, and the select board did in fact vote on Monday night or last week, I'm losing track of the time here, to change our bylaw to also include affordable housing to be fossil-free.
Well, I
New
think
build.
somebody ought to write a letter to Thorough before the ZBA gets tied up in saying you're only going to get it if you go fossil fuel free.
Yeah, here's the suggestion I'd make. Well, first I think it was on December 18th that the select board inserted the article. I only found out about it last Friday when I read about it in the newspaper. But and I put on our agenda tonight. I've got an agenda item on fossil fuel free, which we ought to discuss, and I hope that we feel that we can take a position about that bylaw amendment, and it's probably worth saying now that the CHDC voted yesterday that they're going to, the RFPs that they issued for Assabet and Junction Village will require the developer to comply with the fossil fuel bylaw. The bylaw goes, the amendments go to town meeting for approval. It's amending a town, I'm just saying it, amending a town bylaw is a multi-step process. Town meeting and the Attorney General has 90 days after the town clerk sends the record of the town meeting vote in for approval. So it might be some months away, even this summer, before that amendment takes effect. But I think that there's every, that we should make every effort to require that both of the active 40Bs comply with the fossil fuel bylaw. I think sounds like one of them's doing it voluntarily.
Yeah,
And the other one, I think I think it should be a provision, and that we should go to the mat on that issue with if there's a 40B who does not want to comply with it.
yeah, I mean, I think it's very unlikely that the select board, having voted in favor, that town meeting will vote it down, since we voted it for everything else. And
Right.
frankly, I just as soon not have two 200+ unit 40Bs at the same time in this town. I'd rather focus on getting some more, subsidized middle income housing. But at this point, I just think we should take a position that we strongly support what the select board did, and that somebody ought to write Thorough and say, are you prepared to go fossil fuel free?
Right. I think that's a great suggestion. I think it'd be important for all of the housing roundtable partners to follow the select board's lead and the CHDCs, and stand up in favor of these amendments to the fossil fuel bylaw that would remove what's there now currently, an exemption for affordable housing projects, and that if it's one thing that might sour that amendment on town meeting floors, if the housing groups objected to it. And so I think it would be particularly important for us to be loudly in favor of this, so that it can be, as the Department of Energy Resources has indicated, it needs, otherwise it would, Concord's participation in the pilot project would provide an incomplete picture of the impact of banning the use of fossil fuels in new construction and major innovations. If we're going to be in that pilot project, we need to be completely in it, and housing should be on the same side as the climate.
Yeah, and I think smaller projects, as CHCC has done with the Junction Village and Assabet River projects, probably are getting close to a wash on cost. So I don't know, maybe I'm getting ahead of the agenda, Keith, but I certainly would propose that the town meeting.
Very good. Right, and I'm gonna hold that off for till we get to the portion of the agenda where we're going through zoning and other articles, and we'll just take a series of votes then in favor. But I appreciate the sentiment, and we'll get there as quickly as we can. Any other comments on where we are with the subsidized housing inventory? All right. Next is an update on the housing production plan, which I sort of did with to some degree in microcosm, but we did make a presentation to the Housing Roundtable on December 11th, which you can watch that meeting on Minuteman Media Network, or you can see our presentation posted at the Trust's page at the town website. And I mentioned an update on the Housing Authority property acquisition program. I see Rick Eifler is on the call. I think you've got a scheduled closing on January 31st, Rick, for
Can you hear me?
yes.
Oh, hi, yeah, we've signed a purchase and sale on number 204 at Riverbend at 78 Forest Ridge Road. And yes, the closing scheduled for January 31st or sooner if we can manage, but that's the plan.
That's great. Well, thanks for spending the money so quickly. I'm trying to follow up if you've received the cash. Yeah.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, yeah. Carrie was not able to be on the call, or else I'd ask her. But we're definitely following up, and I know the finance department is aware of the date by which you need it. So, very good. Thank you. Next, Assabet, CHDC, which is working on Assabet River Homes in Junction Village. Any updates you'd like to share, Liz Rust? Thanks.
The CHCC is also waiting for any number of checks from you, right?
Yes, I know. And I do ask the town administration about it, not daily, but every other day. And no one has been able to give me an answer, and I just don't know who to ask anymore.
Sure. They actually, I mean, this, like we always sort of say, the CHCC doesn't have much money. So they're actually holding an invoice that they can't pay till they get some of these reimbursements from, so. But I know that they're coming, right? One of them, I think, was from October even. Anyway, thank you for following up on that. So yes, so yesterday, the 2 RFPs actually got published, like on the schedule. So very good. Yeah, so that's the big news. So we'll see. So I think that now they're in the process, so the information's getting out there, sent to developers. There'll be a site visit and a meeting. I think the responses are due February 16, and they're really companion processes, though separate responses. And yeah, the Assabet River Bluff permitting process is going, right? There's a lot of comments and whatnots to consider. We think it's a small project, but nonetheless, it still has a lot of comments to deal with. And the existing units at 406 are marching forward to lease the vacant unit, and hopefully that's going to happen this month. So things are moving forward for that.
That's great. Thanks so much. And I can tell from that that's your actual background behind you, right? So you haven't, right? So you're always nearby.
I'm always nearby. I am going away for a little bit coming this weekend, but I'll be back in some number of weeks, right?
Very good. Thanks so much for all you do for us.
So it's been a big week for the CHCC, and it'll continue to be a big
Yes.
winter for the CHCC. So it's thanks to this whole group for facilitating and making some of these things possible, both the Housing Authority and the Trust. So I think the collaborative approach is really working well for Concord. I work very closely with Carmine Gentile, who's the chair of the Sudbury Housing Trust.
Yep.
And he was like, "Oh, so much going on in Concord. Wow." So he was like, "Well, what's going on there, and how can we do that in Sudbury and all that?" So so your reputation precedes you in neighboring communities.
That's great. Thanks so much. All right. So next, we don't have any representatives from the town on the call tonight, but I know they're continuing to pursue the surplus state property 91B Main Street. And as I say, the update that I was most interested in, I got from Alan Cathcart yesterday, that if we're setting aside money for the sewer improvement fee for the affordable units at Novo Riverside Commons, it looks like they'll need them, and they would be put to use. So that would, so that's good. We'll have to work out specifically when the funds will be needed. They get and be ready to act on that when the time comes. Very good. Next, any questions about any of our active housing production plan projects? All right, next thing I have is broad category of funding for the trust and a couple of categories. One is about ARPA funds. I just wanted to make note during this meeting that there was an event yesterday at the townhouse where Congresswoman Lori Trahan presented a ceremony, what I'm calling a ceremonial check. It's one of those big checks for $500,000, which recognized the funds that the town, the use of the ARPA funds that the town had made in fiscal 2023 to fund the trust's annual appropriation that year. So, and I mentioned at an event with all the select board present yesterday that the trust is still looking to apply for another $500,000 in town ARPA funds. I'm still unclear on when we'll get to do that. It's another one of the unanswered questions, but hope that we will be able to do that on short order. The community
Keith, I would just
preservation.
make a suggestion.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, it's Linda. I would just make an observation. You know, you're usually pretty polite and say, I know there's a lot, after you say, you know, the trust is hoping to get $1 million this year, 500 from CPA funds and then additional from ARPA, but you're always very polite and say, I know there's a lot of competition for those funds. You know, maybe, and you've said that several times now, you may not want to say that every time ARPA comes up. Just a suggestion.
Just stop being polite. I think I can handle
on that issue. Yes.
Yeah, many who work for me would say I don't have that problem, but that point well taken. Well, should we just go ahead and apply? And
well, or just don't qualify that you realize there's a lot of competition. You know, yeah, we're hoping to have ARPA money, period.
Yeah. Do you have any insight, Linda, on when we or anyone will get
I don't, and others are waiting as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, message received, and we'll keep the vigil up for the opportunity to apply for ARPA funds. And
definitely.
Thanks so much. And we're not just looking for ARPA funds, but we're also looking for a real estate transfer fee. And the other funding for the trust topic that is on our agenda and that I would like to take a vote tonight about is the real estate transfer fee that is included in Governor Healy's housing bond bill, the so-called Affordable Homes Act, House 4138, which gets a hearing. Also, new information from the last time we met. The hearing on that housing bond bill will be on Thursday, January 18th, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the Gardner Auditorium at the State House. I've reached out to all of our housing partners. The Housing Authority voted to support the bill last Thursday. The CHDC voted to support it yesterday morning. The Select Board voted to support it last night on their consent calendar. I'd like us to vote tonight.
Foundational vote to support it tomorrow.
That's great. So we'll all be lined up locally, and I'm to be on a panel. I know Rich is going to be at the hearing. He announced at the Aloha Coalition meeting, he's going to be sitting in Gardner Auditorium, or you did all day, you said. So
Yes,
unless you were saying you were going to be
notes on
sitting at.
it. I'm doing opposition research. We should
Right.
also note that Lise Holdorf from Barrett's Mill Farm is going to testify as someone in municipal housing who couldn't run her business in Concord
Oh,
if she didn't have municipally supported housing.
That's great.
I'm
That's
sorry, can
great.
you say that again, Rich? Who is that?
Lise Holdorf, one of the two people that runs Barrett's Mill Farm.
Oh,
With-
perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
The housing was rehabbed with municipal funds.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. So what I would like now, and what's interesting about the housing bond bill is it's the first expression of gubernatorial support for any real estate transfer fee for housing at all. So the fact that the governor proposed one, it's not that different from the Concord's home rule petition or from the Aloha bill. There are some differences, but in the main, you look at it's the ability to it's local option that if a community wants to do it, they would be able to adopt it anywhere between 0.5% and 2%. Concord has been looking for 1%, which is within that frame, so that's good. The first $1 million of value would be exempted, which is what our proposal sought to do. And the call that I think Rich and I think I also saw Stefan Vader on that listed on the Aloha Coalition call as well. We're trying to send the message broadly, a broad support for the housing bond bill. It's a $4 billion housing bond bill, trying to cover a lot of areas, but specifically we want to call out Section 20 of that bill, which proposes the local option real estate transfer fee to fund affordable housing trusts. And that what we're looking and while the letters that we write may be very specific, the testimony is going to try to be as upbeat, not going to be nitpicking differences between our bill and the governor's bill. Just we're grateful that the governor has included a real estate transfer fee in her proposal. It's going to go through a lot of changes in the coming months between now and enactment, which we're told might, as most things, not be until the final day of the legislature in July. But it's an important first step for this hearing. We want to, I'm glad that Concord will be able to have letters from all of its housing groups in the record and support, and that we'll also have testimony to move it forward. So I would like to invite a motion for the trust to support the governor's $4 billion housing bond bill, which includes in Section 20 a local option real estate transfer fee to fund affordable housing trusts, and send a letter of support to the Joint Committee on Housing for its January 18th public hearing. And I'll let Rich make that motion.
So moved, and I would also just add that they've now, MLRI's done an analysis of every community in the state, and they've confirmed the numbers we've used locally, that this would generate a bit over $2 million a year for the trust.
That's great. Thank you.
I second.
Is there a
that
second?
motion. I second it.
Second by Mike. Very good. Yeah, in fact, it was very interesting to see the map. There was a color map that was shown at the Aloha Coalition call just about an hour ago, which unfortunately for Western Mass, that because their real estate transactions aren't as high, if the minimum threshold is $1 million, a lot of communities won't get much, if anything, out west. So there's some talk that maybe the threshold might be more flexible. And we're sure that changes will be made to the bill as it goes through, but we want to have a strong vote of support on the record this first time out. Any other discussion about this when we take the vote?
Just a question of whether it would also be useful for the select board to write in support.
Yes, they did. Yeah, they voted last night
Oh, they did.
to approve the bill, and Chris Carmody had drafted a letter of support for that.
Terrific.
So
That's great.
it'll be going in. And I feel good about that, because if I'm testifying and on behalf of the trust, I just like to full out say that Concord supports the bill, that and starting with the select board. So and so that's great to see. All right.
So Keith,
let's,
do you also
yes.
need in the motion the authorization to write the letter?
And to send a letter of support to the bill, and to authorize the chair. Authorize the chair to send a letter. I'm going to use, there's a boilerplate that the Aloha Coalition has come up with, which for the written submission, I think will be helpful. I'll mention what we've done in the past in Concord, and add our support of the governor's proposal. So,
And the select board letter may be of assistance as well.
yes, yeah, I'll get a copy of that from Chris. Actually, I think Chris sent me a draft of it over the weekend. So very good. All set for the vote on the vote on support of the bill. All right, let's do a roll call. Linda,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
and Keith, aye. So that passes unanimously 40-0. Thank you. Next, let's see. I think there are. I've not seen. Well, of course, the warrant isn't posted. The town meeting warrant is not posted yet, and all I've seen is, for some of them, is the titles. I've not seen the Community Preservation Committee's article. For example, I don't know if anyone in the call has, but I'm of the understanding that we're included in there for $500,000 for fiscal 2025. Great.
We are.
I don't know what the verbiage is. Last year it said affordable community housing. I don't know if they're using that same language or not. No one. I just the articles aren't available to look at. So I don't know. But I would like us. But I'd like to for us to be on record in support of the CPA article, which includes us. And let me just mention 3 other articles I hope we can discuss as well. 2 of them are planning board articles, the MBTA communities zoning and the 2-family dwelling unit in Residence B zoning district. Both of which I was able to get the final text from planning board chair Linda Miller, who's on the call. And the 4th article that I'd propose we take a vote on and support is the amendment to the fossil fuel free building demonstration project bylaw, which we discussed earlier. So is there a discussion that would like to have on individual articles? Any questions about any of those that I mentioned? Or do you think we might be able to take one motion that supports all 4 of those articles?
Well, Keith, do you want to do this after the public hearings on the warrant articles?
No, I
when-
prefer to, yeah, I mean, the articles are what they are, and they're not gonna, and I think it would be important for the public hearing that we, stand, as I feel especially that way for the zoning articles, that we should be in support of them. And the fossil fuel, I mean, frankly, I'd like to be on record about all of these articles as of tonight. So as the process goes forward. Anyone? Yes, Rich.
Well, yeah, this question is really for Linda. The only one that I have any question about is the two-family in Residence B. And in principle, I definitely support it, and I think the foundation would. The argument I've heard against it, and I think the planning board's probably heard it too, is we're going to get, 3,000 square foot, $1.5 million units, because that's what happens. I mean, the good news is it's not a 5,000 square foot, $2.5 million building. I'm sort of willing to say, okay, well, that begins to be what young professionals might be able to buy in this town and go along with it. But I just wonder, what the planning board's take was on that opposition.
Linda Miller?
Yeah, I'm happy to comment. I think it's, is the glass half empty? Is it half full? In some, I think it represents progress. It doesn't address the full complexity of our need for housing. But really, we have the same situation now in Residence C zoning. This is expanding it to greater potential. We've seen, I think, four units that have come about because of this in Residence C. So it's, I don't think that, and it does require a special permit. So this is not a major change, but it's incremental. And I think that it's incremental in the right direction. So I think that's all we can say. And yes, as long as we're dealing with the profit motive, it exists. So I don't think, that's really the segment of the market we're thinking about. But yeah, I think it's better to have 2 units than with each a smaller footprint that can serve 2 families or 2 family units versus one big McMansion. So that's sort of what's being targeted here.
Yeah, if I ran the zoo, I'd like to preserve some of those, 1,500 square foot houses and fix them up. But we know the developers aren't going to do that. They're going to buy those and tear them down. And so I'm sympathetic to the planning board on this, and I will vote in favor. But I just wanted to hear from Linda. Thank you.
Yeah. It's again, it's incremental in the right direction. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Rich. Other comments on those 4 articles that I mentioned? Well, I guess I'll invite a motion to support the following articles for the 2024 annual town meeting. Community Preservation Committee's article to fund fiscal 2025 CPA projects, including 500,000 for the trust. The planning board's proposed zoning amendments for a zoning map and MBTA communities multifamily overlay district and 2-family dwelling unit in Residence B zoning district, and the proposed the select board's proposed amendment to the fossil fuel-free building demonstration program bylaw. Is someone like to make that motion?
So
So-
moved. You
Okay,
beat me to it, Mike.
okay, so I'll let Mike adjourn when I'll call him. So motion by Rich. Is there a second by Mike?
Yes, there is.
And we'll do a roll call vote. Linda,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
Keith, aye. So that motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Linda, the select board did vote last night to order the articles, to determine the order in which the articles appear.
We
So that
did,
they're assigned numbers. Okay. I'll check with staff then to get the list. It was not,
Carmen, Carmen Reese, the moderator, was there last night, also interacting with the board on this issue. And as she has to do every year, she is going to wait until the public hearings to see what kind of feedback is being received, and on the level of feedback that's being received on each of the articles, which then usually determines which articles she's going to put on the consent calendar, and which articles she determines are high interest articles for certain nights and so forth. So the order is basically what you saw on the meeting materials for the select board meeting, with those caveats.
okay, very good, thank you. And I saw the portion of the meeting where the moderator said and I think she's discussed it at maybe at the chair's breakfast also, that the second night of town meeting, at the beginning of the second night of town meeting, the MBTA community zoning would come up. So
I think
town
that's her,
meetings-
likely,
That's her
likely.
intent. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's mentioned that a number of times.
very good. So town meeting starts on a Monday this year, and so on that Tuesday night, which I think is April 30, will MBTA community zoning will come up. That's great. Well, thanks very much. Next, just a couple of other dates, of updates rather. The annual town report is due January 19th. I had circulated a draft about a month ago, and it's and to make sure that it got in this year, because we didn't get in last year's annual town report. Our report was filed timely, but it didn't make it in. So this year I submitted it right away. And in fact, our report was the first one submitted. But if there are any edits that anyone has, please let me know, and I'll be glad to fine tune them. Linda? Okay. All right, and the second update is that our written agreement with the Community Preservation Committee and the town for the CPA funds for the $1,044,000 that we got this year requires us to do a progress report every 6 months to the CPC, and so I submitted that on December 20 to CPC, and copied all of the board members on that, and we'll continue to do. And I was very glad to be able to report that we had actually committed a significant a portion of our CPC funds of that $1 million that we set aside funds for the well, the money that's going, the money that's going out the door, hopefully soon, to the to the CHDC and to the Housing Authority. Both of those were charged to the CPC funds. Glad to be putting those to work and wanted to just send that signal to the Community Preservation Committee that we appreciate the money they gave us, and we're looking forward to spending more if we get more. So we really appreciate their support. Public comment. We are nearing the end of the agenda. Is there public comment? All right. Now we're next scheduling the trust's next meeting. Any thoughts about when we should do that? We've been meeting well, we hadn't met for a month now, but I think we'll be wanting to meet maybe every couple of weeks from now, if that works. 2 weeks from tonight is the 23rd. We could also push that off to the 30th if
I'll be out of town on the 23rd, so the
Okay.
30th would be helpful to me.
Okay, does the 30th work for others?
Yep.
All right,
Works for me.
okay. Linda, is that good for you? Linda Escobedo?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So we will next meet on January 30th. And we are ready for a motion to adjourn. Mike,
So moved.
Second,
second by Rich. All right, so motion and a second to adjourn. We'll do a roll call vote. Linda,
Aye, thank you.
Mike,
Aye. Goodbye, everybody.
Rich,
aye.
and Keith, aye. So we are adjourned and it is 5:57 p.m. All right. Thank you all very much. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.